Hey everyone, today I'm posting an interview I did with Dr. Lou Markos from Houston Baptist University. I actually did this interview back in June at the ACCS Repairing the Ruins conference, but have not been able to edit it together and post it till now. Dr. Markos got his MA and PhD in English from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. He has a BA in English and History from Colgate University. He's currently the scholar in residence at Houston Baptist. He's a professor of English, and he also holds a position in the humanities department, the Robert H. Ray Chair. He's not the chair of the humanities department, he reminded me, but he has the Robert H. Ray Chair position. Dr. Markos is an authority on C.S. Lewis. He lectures on ancient Greece and Rome for HBU's Honors College. He's the author of 16 books, which I will post in the comment box below, and some really fun books, fiction and nonfiction. He's also produced two lecture series available from the teaching company, The Life and Writings of C.S. Lewis, which is on my shelf to listen to as soon as possible, and a book about Plato to postmodernism, sort of a history of literature. He's a really good speaker. You'll see he's highly entertaining and energetic. I think it's that Spartan blood. And he's delivered many, many public lectures, which I've enjoyed over the years. So I'm really grateful to him for catching up with me at this interview. We're talking about classical Christian education, future directions, and what's different about these kinds of schools. Enjoy. I'm here with Dr. Markos, and your friends call you Lou, is that right?
Lou.
Is it Louis or Louis?
Well, it really is Louis.
It is
Louis. Go by
Louis.
Lou. And,
Yes.
and actually, I was named for my grandfather, whose name is Leonidas, because I'm Greek.
No kidding.
And I'm actually a Spartan.
No kidding.
Yeah,
You're a
so
Spartan.
I am Spartan, and I mean, I'm born here, but my grandfather was born in Sparta, Leonidas, and they instead of Leo, they made it Louis. But yeah, so I'm really more an Athenian by nature, I think.
Okay.
But but I'm tough. I mean, I write books until 4 in the morning, so that's the Spartan side of me.
Yes.
I'm tough.
So when your kids, when they walk in the room, they can say, "We are Sparta."
That's right. Yeah, that's right. They can say
Literally.
that.
The classical education movement, in my experience, I've been a part of it for about 10, 15 years. We've been polishing a model, experimenting with the model. People do it differently, some good ways and a lot of different ways. We've been polishing the model, and it's working. When you start a new school,
Right.
it seems to flourish
Right.
because the model works. What do you think might be a next step to expand the model,
Right.
to bring it to charter schools, to do it in colleges, build more colleges? What do you think should we just stay the course?
I mean, like I said, I would keep it, but what you said is already happening with classical charter schools. Now, of course, they're strapped. They can't mention Christianity specifically. And I've spoken for Responsive Education and Great Hearts and done in-services. They're really a great group. So that's the next step. And I can't remember what it was, but somebody was talking about, as Christians in America, we need to do the Elijah versus the priests of Baal, because Americans were mesmerized by statistics.
Yes.
So the way we win is by saying, look, we've got better statistics than you are. That's why they allow Christian groups into prison, because we're the only ones that lower the recidivism rate. They allow Christian groups to come in and talk against drugs in public schools because it's the only thing that works. So the best thing we can do is be the best that we are. We've got to send those children out, and they're going to make a difference in the world. And if we can then help the charter schools, that would be the next thing. But and also what we've got to do is tell our students, I hate to say this, but tell the students, don't go to Princeton, Harvard, or Yale. Go to Christian schools that have honors colleges that are doing this, that value this, and moving on. It's time we just let them wither on the vine and stop, playing up to our vanity and sending our kids to these schools.
Because we want them for legitimacy, but also we lend them our legitimacy.
Yeah.
Good students give reputation to their school, and we need to almost save that legitimacy for our own.
I mean, for example, I'm at Houston Baptist University. We have an MLA, National Liberal Arts, but a few years ago we changed it to be a very classical Christian approach to help prepare teachers to teach classical Christian schools.
Okay.
So, send us your students, we'll send you back teachers.
Yes.
But I mean, we need to do this, and it's not just a vicious cycle, because it's growing a whole other generation.
Okay.
So now, what is the most, you're already doing this, but I think you need to work even harder at preserving masculinity and femininity. I think the most dangerous thing in our world is the breaking down of the sexes. These kids have, it's even beyond transgender. They just don't know what a man or woman is. I am so happy when I look at classical Christian schools and I see them affirming masculinity, affirming guys to be knights, okay, and get the girls, and to help them to take their masculinity and femininity as a gift and use it to serve other people. And I think right now the classical Christian schools and homeschoolers are the best poised to do that. They're away from the poison of public education.
Isn't that amazing? We started out saying we need to read Homer and Plato, and now we're saying we know that boys are boys and girls are girls, and they're different, and they're both good, and it's almost like we're winning with common sense.
I know, just common sense, yeah. How can you do that? I did write an article called, there are certain things that are so ridiculous only a PhD can believe them.
Yes.
Yes. But I mean, my greatest joy about this is that, again, you need to understand that 20 years ago, most homeschoolers and Christian schools, they were like Bible only.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to be the ones that save the pagan classics to the next dark ages when the Ivy Leagues have thrown her away. God has a sense of humor. He said, we're basically Frodo. We are like the least likely people, conservative Christians, Reformed Christians, to save the pagan classics, and yet God has a sense of humor.
So this is something I asked Dr. George, and something that I've been sort of mulling over and I don't really have a clear thought about. What is the alliance between classical education and political conservatism? Is it a happenstance, historical genesis kind of a thing, where homeschool families that pulled their kids out of school because of these sort of progressive policies happen to revive the lost tools of learning? Or is there a natural kinship, relationship between a kind of adherence to tradition and therefore interest in our Western tradition?
I think there's that. I don't know if you know, there's a real irony that a lot of people don't know. You know who the first homeschoolers were 50 years ago? The first homeschoolers were hippies.
Okay,
right?
Really?
And the funny thing is, what does a hippie and a conservative Christian mom have in common? Neither one of them wants their kids raised by the man. Now, but it's kind of ironic. But I do think in this Fuller movement, but we have to understand that we're not Republicans, we're conservatives. We're trying to bring back a true conservatism. And Dr. George was talking about true conservatism is the Catholic understanding of subsidiarity, which was picked up by G.K. Chesterton, the idea of distributed, Chesterton and Belloc, Hilaire Belloc. And it's the idea that you do it on the smallest possible scale. And I think part of the classical Christian school movement is not just we want our kids. If we want to change the culture, we're going to change it from the bottom up, not from the top down. Forget about, we've gotten, first of all, who was, like, in some ways, the most committed Christian president we've had in 100 years? It was Jimmy Carter. He destroyed everything with Roe versus Wade and everything else. So it's got to be and this is a grassroots movement, but it's a movement that says true conservatism doesn't like big government. But we're also a little bit suspicious about big business. We believe completely in free enterprise, but we want to do things on the smallest level possible and then grow. And so I think there's a natural kinship. Like I said, you can be a homeschooler for hippie reasons, I suppose, but that's kind of died out.
Okay.
Right? Whereas this has remained. And we understand, a lot of it goes back to Abraham Cooper, or Kuyper. Kuyper or Cooper sometimes. He was the one that talked about sphere sovereignty, the idea that there is the state, the church, and the family, and they have their important elements that you've got to keep. And another person who's important in this whole movement, even at is a guy named Marvin Olasky. Have you ever heard of the Tragedy of American Compassion? Now he hasn't started the homeschooling movement. He's very tied up to Summit Ministries. I've spoken to them, Worldview Academy, because we're understanding that the Christian worldview is not just theology. It's psychology, sociology, marriage and the sexes, everything, all the way down the line. And that is what we're offering, a coordinated understanding of what true conservatism is. It is preserving the tradition.
And hence, we have a really good play to make about university. A picture of the unity.
We're the true university.
Unity, yeah. So that leads to a second question about math and science. Everyone that I've talked to here, when I say, how do we do math and science classically, they go, that's a good question.
It's the hardest thing. The only book I've read is by Robbie Jane and Kevin Clark. And, it's difficult because the trivium is all about words.
Yes.
The quadrivium is all math, because it's math, it's geometry, that's math, astronomy is all math, and music is math.
Quantities.
And so I'm still kind of figuring that out myself, and they still are. But we've got to find a way to get to the joy of math. It's sort of like, they said that Tolkien had gotten inside language. We've got to find a way to get teachers that can get our students inside the numbers. And any professor could be this, but math professors are most notorious in college for being brilliant but have no concept of how to teach it. In other words, it comes to them so intuitively that they cannot teach it.
Yes.
We've got to find a way, and I mean, one of the things I would like to see is teaching math with a sense of intelligent design. That the earth works, I mean, all the way back to Pythagoras, that it works on numbers. Numbers are the language of God. That was a Galileo saying. And we need to show them the intricate design and beauty, and remind them that even secular physicists, one of their criteria for a law is if it has elegance, like E equals mc squared. The more elegant it is, the more likely it is to be true. That would not happen in a random world.
So that's
that
a sort
happens
of
in a design
mathematical, scientific, theological lesson, just all in one. Boom, boom, boom. And
that's what we need to do to show the beauty of proportion. What do the good, the true, and the beautiful have in common? They're all a kind of harmony or balance between things.
As a math teacher at a classical school in Texas.
He used to be at Providence because I know him.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
The way he used to express it was, he said, I'm not just teaching them how to crank widgets, with equations and so on. He said, I'm trying to teach my students, I'm trying to invite them to have a number thought.
Right, that's it, yeah. He does, he's a philosopher too.
Yeah.
Great guy, and I've met with him. He's got a bunch of kids and stuff like that. Really great guy.
Yeah, but I love that idea of number thoughts because it's sort of like, don't just learn Latin, have Latin thoughts, like really get into it, get on the inside.
Yeah, the inside, yeah. It's just like being fluent in a language. It means you think in the language, you could dream in the language.
Yes.
And you can tell people are fluent, because if you ever are with somebody that's from another country, and their English is quite good, but if they're in a bus and they're counting people, they will count in their language if you listen. They'll start counting, we immediately do that. And I've seen them count, even though they're perfect in English, they're counting in their language. So these are certain things that are in our mind. This is what's going to save our country. We're going to have the salt and light growing and percolating and things like that. And it's like I said, I've not given up on our country. I do a lot of speaking, and I'm very optimistic because of all the classical Christian schools I've been to. And wherever you go, they all have the same spirit. They're all unique in their own way, but the same spirit is there, a joy. And one of the things that's so different, I met a woman a few years ago who was an older woman. She had taught in the public school system for 30 years, and now she was speaking in classical Christian. And she explained to me the difference. She said, even today, when you go to a big teacher conference for public schools and you look around at the teachers, half of them are obese, they're smoking, they're unhealthy, they're unhappy. You go to classical, they're all healthy. I mean, they're super modern, but everybody is healthy of body, spirit, mind. They're excited. I mean, it really is true, and I see that. This is why, not always, but I don't like doing pure academic conferences because they're so jaded. They're not there to learn anything. They're there to show how much smarter they are than Milton. And you come here, there is real eagerness. Do you know when I do in-services, who's taking the most notes? Second grade teacher. Now she knows she's not going to use it in the classroom, but she understands that we're part of the vision. The more I understand the full vision, the more, and they're just eating it up, taking more notes than anybody else. I love that.
This is a little thing, but have you looked at the CLT exam?
Oh yeah. I already put my name down there. I wrote them an essay for them.
Great,
I just wrote an essay for them.
So you like it?
Oh yeah,
everything
it's a great
I've seen
idea.
has been impressive.
And it's part of taking it back.
The whole ecosystem.
Yeah, stop being defensive and start. What's the football phrase? The best defense is a strong offense.
Yes.
Let us be. And I speak often on virtue. I said, instead of complaining about the lack of virtue in school, let's show what real virtue is, and that will win out every time.
Well, thank you. That's inspiring and exciting.
And I can't believe it. From the very school I'm going to be going.